Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Global Mindfulness in Education Summit. Really excited today to introduce you to Michael Bready. He's coming to us from Scotland, and he is the founder of Youth Mindfulness, which has helped thousands of children and adolescents and teachers be trained in mindfulness. He's worked with youth in prison, and his program is now being taught in over 20 countries. He does training in various locations, and people take that program back and implement it. So we're really excited to have him here today. So thank you, Michael, and welcome to the summit.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to talk to you, Helen. And yeah, looking forward to our chat.
So Michael, tell us first of all about how you maybe found mindfulness or an experience maybe when you were younger that you didn't even know it was mindfulness, and now you think back and think, oh yeah, that was the first time I kind of noticed.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Helen. The thing that kind of got me into mindfulness, or maybe kind of kick-started it, I think I would have always discovered it. I think I was always inclined to be really interested in this broader area. But the thing that really kick-started was the first relationship that I had that ended in heartache. You know, at 17, 18, you know, that old adage, the first cut is the deepest, and I think that was a real experience of suffering that made me kind of say, well, wow, like, how do you? I didn't. Maybe up until that point, I didn't really know that my mind was capable of that level of suffering. Right. So that really made me think, like, well, how do you take care of the mind? Yeah. And how do you become strong, but strong not in a kind of a hard shell way, but like a kind of a deep inner kind of strength, like an inner anchor, in a way. But actually, when you ask that question, the one thing that comes to mind is a memory I have when I was maybe about 10 or 11 or 12. When I was young, I used to play football outside my house on the street and just like kind of keep you up a lot. Yeah. And there was one night where there was this amazing sunset. And I remember when I went and got a chair from my back garden and took it up onto the roadside and just sat and looked at this sunset, which must have looked quite odd for a kind of a 12-year-old or something to just sit and be in. But that was definitely a mindful moment, yeah, and a moment probably of maybe a sense of wonder, you know.
Yeah, I think so many of us, it's somehow connected to nature when we were younger. Yeah, because there are such amazing things to see in this world.
Totally,
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening in Scotland. Like, are you seeing? Just give us a general overview of mindfulness. Are you seeing an increase in interest, or are there certain Scottish traditions that may be linked with mindfulness?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think my sense is, so I do a lot of training of educators. Now that's kind of become quite a big part of my work, and I see people from all over the world. We recently we delivered a training in London. We had people from Hong Kong, from Poland, from the US, from Italy. So, and my sense is, when people tell me how things are going in their country, my sense is that the Scotland and then the wider UK is mindfulness is quite well established here, and the field is quite well developed. Maybe more developed than certain other countries. That's my kind of sense, you know.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways that is really great. Like there's in the kind of community of practice and training and people that I see here on the ground that are doing the work, there's a lot of really heartfelt practitioners that really get what this is about and are really looking to really start with their own practice and know that that's the heart of everything they share. And then from their own practice, look to like, how can they start to make this change? And a lot of people are really coming from a point of view of wanting to make a positive change in the lives of young people, but also a positive shift in society more generally, you know. And the kind of danger that arises, that has arisen alongside that, is that mindfulness has become a buzzword.
Yeah.
And so in lots of different contexts, people are really excited about getting it in to their school, or even other contexts, whether that's health or social care or business. And there's a sense that it's being, as it kind of spreads out into society, it's being watered down to some degree, or the conception of what it can be is narrowing, you know. And that's something that kind of concerns me, that the transformative potential of mindfulness is not being realized to its fullest potential, perhaps, you know.
So tell us a little bit about your training, where people have come from all these different countries, because we have many educators, and I know a lot of people are looking for a program. So what's the length of that usually, and how many times a year do you run that?
Yeah, so we have a kids program. So a Youth Mindfulness Kids program is a program I started developing about 8 years ago.
Okay.
And I had the opportunity to really do a lot of work with kids in the kind of 7 to 11 age range. And over time, over a few years, it became refined into this kind of 16 lesson format. And yeah, I want to be really concise here. I don't want to spend our whole conversation explaining the program, but the program, it has more outcomes than just the basic attention training. So we in the first, the main aim of the whole first 6 lessons is to develop the kids' capacities for embodied awareness. And so we look at how why they might want to practice mindfulness, training attention to be present, the kind of attitudinal qualities of openness, of allowing, of curiosity. And then from that basis, then we look at how mindfulness can actually help us touch into the good stuff in life, the things that nourish us, and that's through practices of appreciation and gratitude. And then we also look at how we can take care of difficult things in our life, difficult emotions, difficult thoughts. And then the kind of last 6 lessons of the program turn their attention more towards the cultivation of kindness and compassion, both to self and other. And so that's a kind of an overview of the whole program. And one of the things that's a real delight in teaching that program, I found it was so essential to make the program fun, you know. So one of the things that I really found is I was working in these lessons and thinking and doing it again and again and again, is how can you get the rhythm right? Because if it's all about stillness, kids at that age are just too restless. So there's a nice rhythm between stillness and then kind of wildness and silliness, you know, between really a balance between fun and learning. And I find that, you know, if kids are laughing, if kids are smiling, if they're interested, learning is like just right round the corner. It's, you know, it's right there. So we do a lot of movement in the program, and then a lot of practices. And then our training is 5 days.
Okay.
Often we do it over 2 weekends, or sometimes we do it 5 days all in one go. That'll be often we do that in the summer months. And over the course of the 5 days of training, we deliver all of the lessons as they would be delivered in the classroom. Yeah. And the other kind of main, so that gives people a real live experience of the program. And then the other things we look at is we spend quite a bit of time nurturing our own personal practice. So we almost see the trainings as like an urban retreat, you know, for our own practice. And then the other thing we look at is the key kind of teaching skills, the key things one needs to know and how to deliver the course, which really is around how to guide practices. And how to lead the inquiry process with kids, how to have these discussions around practice afterwards. So that's kind of the overview of the training.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. We'll have a link so you can, if you're interested, you can look that up and see when the next one is. But yeah, sounds like an amazing, like you said, kind of like a retreat, but where you're absorbed in your own
Yeah,
personal practice and then learning the skills to bring to your students as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's wonderful. So when you see, these people coming from different countries and the work that you're doing in Scotland, what kind of challenges do you think are coming up with mindfulness in education? Maybe things that I know you mentioned about, things getting watered down, or people maybe thinking they're teaching mindfulness, but it's not actually mindfulness. What are some of the main things that concern you, I guess, about this explosion in interest in this topic?
Mm, that's a good question. So, uh, there's an issue around, there's a basic issue around quality.
Yeah.
So as mindfulness becomes the kind of new buzzword, and everybody's excited about it, and this kind of things tends to happen in education. There can be almost come like this kind of buzzword fatigue in education circles. For a few years it's all about this thing, and then another kind of paradigm comes in, or another approach. Everybody gets excited about that. So I think there is a real possibility that in 3 or 4 years' time, mindfulness will be another buzzword will come in.
Yeah.
And I think there's a kind of a natural, there's an explosion in interest, and then it comes into a kind of plateau,
Yeah.
and it's once we reach that plateau where the kind of ongoing work of transformation, I think, will take place.
Yeah.
But so I think if people try to teach mindfulness without significant training, and of course, most fundamentally, without their own practice,
Yeah.
that's whilst it can be harmful,
Right.
because we're taking young people to an interior space that we haven't ourselves really explored. Or another thing is that we could turn kids off from mindfulness for when they could receive a lot of benefit, and they think, no, this is boring, it's rubbish, it's. But I think also we just miss the potential of it if we don't have our own personal practice, and we can't speak with that genuine from that genuine experience of our own practice. So I think that's a kind of an issue. I think also one of the dangers is that mindfulness is flowing into a system that has its own there already, and what I see in Scotland, which is really, I think, really great, is that in Scotland, in primary schools especially, there seems to be a real appreciation of nurturing the well-being of the young people, of the kids. My sense often in high schools is that well-being really takes a back seat towards the academic outcomes. And I mean, in no way do I think we should throw out the academic objectives of education. I think obviously they're essential. But what tends to happen is I think, and of course this also happens as young people enter adolescence. Naturally, their stress starts to increase, their anxiety starts to increase with social media now, but there's also just the concerns of peer pressure and all these kind of things. And well-being is really kind of not given the priority I think it needs to be given. And so, of course, this means that their academics suffer, but also young people's mental health is suffering. And I think that within the education system, there is this logic of exam results are really the defining metric of success. And I think we need a bigger conversation about what is education about? What is education really for? Especially as we're entering an economy and a society, we have no idea really what the economy will be like in 15 years. So a young person starting, high school in Scotland might be about 12 years old, maybe graduate university, 21, 22. So 10 years, we've got an education system that we don't really know what we're preparing them for, even for the economy.
Yeah.
So I think I think there's a bigger story about what it means to be human emerging, and this is around a real valuing of what traditionally has been called soft skills, like our social skills, our capacities for creativity, for problem solving, for and also the fact that all of these things can be trained and cultivated. The research in neuroplasticity, research in epigenetics, how our experience influences our expression of our genes. Also more of the research now in adverse childhood experiences and how stress and trauma can affect the developing brain, the developing young person. So I think we're getting a far more nuanced, deep version of what it means to be human. And I think that has to then bring changes to how we think about nurturing human beings.
Yeah.
You know, rather than this kind of what is still mostly quite a narrow understanding of training in reason and cognitive thinking skills. We need to start training the whole human being. So I think that's a danger. If mindfulness, if we don't embrace this new story that's emerging, mindfulness could become subsumed to this old kind of outdated narrative.
Right.
And so basically what you then have is mindfulness is attention training to improve study skills. Mindfulness is a way to help young people cope with stress, when actually maybe there's things about society or the education system that are exacerbating the stress.
Yeah.
So mindfulness can become a sticking plaster or just like some little tool to improve, you know, things in a system that's actually not fit for purpose anymore. So I think if mindfulness can become part of contribute to a wider shift, I think that's where the real potential lies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
that was a lot there.
yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, very, very interesting. And as you say, you know, we don't know what the future is going to look like, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be very different than now in terms of working life and economy and things. So I think personally, like those skills are going to be so much more important, just to have the resilience in ourselves as well. So Michael, tell us about like the other side. What are the opportunities that you see, and what are maybe some of the things that you've seen in your work where you've really seen a benefit from schools implementing this, or maybe your work in the prisons?
Yeah, what are the opportunities? I think, to my mind, the opportunities are the kind of flip side of what's kind of painted as the dangers, you know. So so there's one good friend and colleague I have that has completed. I think he's done every piece of training that Youth Mindfulness has offered, and he works in a school, in a primary school. And he's been working to implement the Youth Mindfulness Kids program there. And he's really engaged in quite a deep project to transform the whole community. You know, so he's teaching mindfulness to multiple ages of kids. So he's teaching the kids program to in Scotland we have primary 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be kind of 7 to 11 years old. He's also kind of adapted elements of the kids program and developed his own elements to start teaching mindfulness to the infant school, the kind of the younger, the primary 1, 2, and 3, which is like 5, 6, and 4, 5, 6, 7. And he's also delivering mindfulness with the staff and also with parents as well.
Oh.
And in that school, they do the whole school will stop for a bell of mindfulness. I think they do that every day, maybe even twice a day. And so they're really embedding it in as a whole school approach. And I think there's two things that enable that. One, the head teacher is really supportive. So there's that buy-in at the leadership level. So that's a big element. Two, this guy, his name is Hugh. He's wonderful guy, so likable. So he's people are going to be amenable to his you know, I haven't actually been to the school, but I can imagine that the teachers and the parents will be really receptive to what he's doing, you know. And the third thing is that he's a champion for it.
Yeah.
So this is what we tend to find again and again. The schools where things are going beyond just a standard course and starting to move towards a kind of mindful community embedded, the adults, the staff, and parents around the kids are starting to nurture their practice. Is becoming embedded in the school too. There's often invariably a kind of mindfulness champion. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And this will be somebody who has a strong personal practice, really sees, this opens up to a new way of living, you know, and it's their passion without falling into kind of an evangelical way. Like we're always very, very clear that if a school is interested in training their staff, it has to be invitational. There's no point in saying to staff, right now you have to learn mindfulness, because it's a deeply personal thing, you know. So it's a disaster if you compel people to mindfulness, but slowly you can water the seeds, and that's what we really see. And I think that's when a bigger kind of bigger shifts can happen. Because one thing, for instance, I think we struggle in our society with is a sense of alienation.
Yeah.
You know, again with the rise of phone addictions and the attention economy, we spend more and more time gazing into a screen than the eyes of our loved ones, you know. And so there is this increasing in sense of alienation, which I think is at the heart of a lot of our social and psychological issues. And practicing mindfulness, once we connect with ourselves, and then maybe with our eyes closed, we're practicing mindfulness breathing, we open up and we look around, it's much easier to connect with other people, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's all. And I think another thing that can start to emerge as we connect more deeply with ourselves, deeply with our own body, with our own somatic awareness, out of that, I kind of a deep engagement with a discussion about values and what we care about and what's important to us can start to emerge. And I think that's where we can also start to address the kind of lack of meaning that's in society.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I think that's another thing that needs to happen in schools. Like if school is only about pass exams so you can get a good job, so you can earn a lot of money, the danger is that speaks to quite a narrow narcissistic narrative. And I think we are at the time when we're scratching around, we're looking around, what is the deeper narrative that gives our life meaning and purpose today, you know? And I think we need to, the schools are beginning more and more to engage with these questions of how do we bring values to life in a meaningful way, rather than just have them as things on the wall that we walk past every day but don't really engage with, you know?
Right.
So I think these are kind of some of the opportunities, communities of belonging, more deeper engagement with values, and the aliveness of personal practice.
Yeah, I love everything that you said, and especially about having that kind of champion in the schools, because that's what I've personally seen as well, as when it becomes like a whole community that's involved, and it's usually 2 or 3 people that are have had a personal benefit usually from doing this themselves. So
absolutely.
I think instead of this kind of forced you will do mindfulness for 10 minutes every Friday, it doesn't work. So thanks for sharing that. So Michael, in Scotland, is it when, like you're saying, it's in more and more schools are taking part, is it like on a national level, like is the government involved, or is it more individual schools that are like you just mentioned, somebody may be interested in it and then they bring it to their school, or how is it?
It's more led by individual schools to a significant degree, you know. I think there are opportunities for the government to support this work, and we're working with other organisations to bring mindfulness more into the awareness of Scottish members of Parliament, MSPs, and there's work being done down in the Westminster Parliament to teach mindfulness to MPs down there and raise awareness about the practice. But I'm quite wary of this being led by policymakers,
Right,
in a way,
yeah.
you know. I think support can be really, really good. So how can we enable this? You know, so that might be funding for research, funding for training. But I think if the government is to kind of any kind of mandate or any kind of it becomes kind of somewhat problematic. I think also one of the things that's emerging is really the wisdom is on the ground. The wisdom is among the people that are doing the work, and they're the ones that can see what needs to shift in the wider system, what changes we need to make. And I think in some ways, one of the things one of the issues with our society to some degree is that everything's managed by spreadsheets and key performance indicators and outcomes, you know. And there's a lot of value to that. I mean, that's very efficient. But we've also lost to some degree the kind of in the moment human wisdom, you know. So I know a young person who was trained to be a teacher and dropped out of the profession just because they found that they were having to see about 400 kids a week in a high school, and the workload was so high, the stress was so high, they had no time to connect with the pupils in front of them. And yet all the research tells us that, you know, the key to one of the biggest predictors of academic success is the teacher-student relationship, you know. And of course we know for the young people who've experienced adversity or trauma, positive human relationships are key to the safeness that brings healing and enables them to succeed in spite of the difficulties they experience. But when you're planning things from the point of view of a spreadsheet, you don't factor into, oh, maybe we need to leave 20 minutes for that moment for that student and teacher to just connect. How are things at home? Sounds like you're having a bit of a tough time at the moment. It's just like, okay, they can do this many lesson prep in this week, and you feel like the whole time, and there's no space for human contact. So I think, again, this is where we have to really try and find ways to bring a kind of a human perspective back into what is essentially human work. It's you know, older human beings facilitating the growth and development of younger human beings. That's what education is about. But we kind of lose touch with the possibilities of this human connection. So I think we have to, I don't know the answer to this, but I think we have to find ways to enable that kind of on the ground, in the moment human wisdom. And so that's why I'm wary of policymakers saying this is how mindfulness should be done. You know? Especially when the field is so young and so dynamic and emerging, you know.
I think a lot of people that I talk to, it's like the funding. They want to a lot of the stumbling block is getting the funding to train the teachers, or but that's in everything in education, isn't it?
We have totally, Helen. A lot of people that come on our training, say a lot of people get funding from the work, but a lot of people self-fund. And they self-fund because they've got a passion for this. They see that this is what their heart's drawn to, you know. So totally.
So before we finish today, could you maybe share a practice that that you personally like, or that you found has worked really well with students in schools?
I could maybe share a practice. One of the things that I find is slightly different, especially working with the young kids in teaching mindfulness to adults. Often in teaching mindfulness to adults, there's an emphasis on kind of bare awareness, not being too suggestive to relaxation or ease or enjoyment. I think often because adults, we have these long established patterns of holding tension or tightness in our body, and we don't know how to release it. So when somebody says, and just easing with the out breath, people are like, I can't ease, and especially when they're beginning, they react against it. There could be resistance to that. What I found when teaching kids, though, is that often these gentle encouragements to ease or enjoyment, they're quite receptive to it. They're quite open to that. And of course, you have to be gentle and careful with that. But even in a small way, it just seems that their minds and their bodies are more receptive. So they seem to really respond to that. So this is something that we bring in a little bit in when we guide practices, is these invitations to ease, these invitations to whatever enjoyment is present, to notice that and deepen into that. And that's very influenced by Thich Nhat Hanh's approach to mindfulness. Almost from the word go in the Plum Village tradition of mindfulness, there's this encouragement to nourish joy and happiness through the practice of presence. So I could maybe, if you want, I could maybe just lead us in a few breaths.
Okay.
Awareness of a few breaths, if that would be okay to touch into that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we can maybe just finding a way of sitting that feels comfortable and at ease, maybe with a sense of a kind of gentle sense of uprightness. It might be nice to begin with one or two slightly deeper breaths. Feeling the fullness of the in-breath, kind of natural letting go of the out-breath. And just tuning into an awareness of whatever support is offered to the body right now. Sitting on a chair, lying down, sitting on the floor, just feeling the support that's offered to the body as the weight rests down. With the in-breath, there can maybe be a sense that awareness flows into the body. To the belly, the lungs. Almost a sense that awareness is carried into the arms, legs. Noticing the effortlessness of the out-breath. The body just letting go. Maybe inviting any tension, tightness, or holding in the muscles of the body to just let go as the body lets go of the breath. Maybe there can be a sense of freshness of the air with the in-breath. So just resting with the gentle enjoyment of breathing in, breathing out. All the cells of the body nourished with the in-breath. And just an allowing of ease with the out-breath. This moment right now is a moment of life, a moment of experience. And then, when ready, just opening the eyes, bringing the practice to a close. Maybe easing out the body if it feels good to do so.
Yep.
So,
Michael, that was wonderful.
thank you for giving me the time to do that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed leading that.
That's great. And thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts with us and telling us about what's happening kind of in Scotland and with your international students that are bringing mindfulness all over the world. We will have the link, as I mentioned, below for youth mindfulness, so you can find out what's happening, what programs are going on, and how to connect with Mike if you need to do so.
Yeah.
I want to say thanks again for taking the time to share all of that with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Helen. It was really, really a pleasure to speak to you, and yeah, I hope we get a chance to do this again.
Yeah.
In the future.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Bye.